I'm Paul Heires, and this is Just the Numbers, a podcast miniseries about sports and the numbers that drive them. Over the next 10 weeks, I'll be diving into statistical oddities, outliers, and everything numbers-based in the sports world. I'm glad you're listening. And if you don't know, this is somewhat of a spin-off of Unqualified Opinions on YouTube and Spotify. My goal is to have each episode up on YouTube and Spotify as a subset of shows as a part of Unqualified Opinions. This show will be aired on KRNU2 through Transistor and many other platforms coming soon. So wherever you're listening, thank you and welcome. This will be more of an introduction episode for the listeners out there. I just kind of want to ease into things and kind of get started with this new experience, Just the Numbers. Hopefully we'll get into some talk about NCAA March Madness here down the road. I definitely want to get into a lot of talk about NFL and the NFL draft that will be coming down the stretch. I hope to have some guests on later this season. I know a few people that would really love to talk about NBA and college basketball especially. And then I would love toward the end of this 10-week mini-sesh of episodes to really get into baseball. The MLB starting up, of course, in April, and of course, college baseball. Being at Nebraska here at UNL, we had a pretty successful baseball team last year and a lot of hype going into this season around the baseball team and what they have to do this season. So a lot of things to talk about, a lot of numbers to get into. I will also love to get into some of the differences between college sports and the professional counterparts. A lot of differences when it comes to, penalties or fouls, or whether that be, overtime rules in the NFL versus college. Just a lot of different areas where those differences are seen, and the differences between the fanships and why they choose to watch professional or college athletics because of those statistics and because of those smaller parts of the game that aren't really talked about as much. I'd really love to get into that stuff. We just wrapped up the Super Bowl. I'm recording this the next Monday after the Super Bowl on the 14th. It probably will come out about a week later or so. Once again on KRNU2. Hope to get this up on YouTube as well and get some videos out for you guys. But that being said, let's kind of get into this week's episode and just kind of go from there. Once again, this is just going to be kind of open opinions, open talks. I love numbers, I love sports, and I'd love to just bridge the gap between those two, using the numbers in sports to make the sports have more meaning, and we'll see where it goes. Answered for people out there that are listening, and that being said, let's just get into it here. So let's take a look at the Super Bowl in terms of games over the long stretch of the Super Bowl history. So this was Super Bowl 56, and this will bring the Los Angeles Rams franchise to 2-3 overall in their history. Obviously, their loss to the Patriots with Jared Goff, they went 1-1 with Kurt Warner back in the day. So the Rams now up to 2-3. Bengals still winless in the Super Bowl. They dropped to 0-3. It was their first Super Bowl appearance since Super Bowl 23 back in 1989, when they lost to the San Francisco 49ers 20-16. So definitely a huge step in the right direction for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise and for the city of Cincinnati in general. And what I want to do for this episode, take a look at each division, right? So the Bengals from the AFC North, obviously, and then the Rams from the NFC West. I want to take a look at the divisions, their standings by Super Bowl win percentage. And this is going to be a little bit This can be a little bit interesting just because of the realignments of the divisions over the league history, but I'm just going to strictly break down each division and the teams that are in those divisions as of right now, and then what what each of those franchise record within their division now. So, in other words, the Tennessee Titans will be adding all the stats from the Houston Oilers when they were in Houston. So, let's just take a breakdown. There are 8 divisions, obviously, North, East, South, and West for both the AFC and NFC. Quick breakdown. The AFC is 26-30 now with that loss last night. And the NFC, obviously, the flip side, 30-26 with a 53.6% win percentage. So almost right down the middle, which is good to see as the league has been pretty even on both ends of the spectrum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the rankings. We'll go 8-1 and talk about each division individually, talk about the teams in them, maybe reasons why they're at that ranking. I'll talk a little bit more about each team and their history in the Super Bowl. And then later, I'll probably get into talk about, what it means to get to the Super Bowl. And then in a later episode, I will go into more of a breakdown of playoff percentage, playoff appearances. I'll go ahead and break down more of a playoff-based ranking system. Obviously, the Super Bowl is important, but, just getting there once and winning once, for instance, the Jets, they're 1-0 in the Super Bowl, right? But would anyone really say that they are, one of the best franchises in the NFL? I'd argue probably not. One Super Bowl appearance is great. The fact that they're 1-0 in that one appearance is great. But looking at the grand scheme of things, they haven't made the playoffs in quite some time. And so you can't really say that's a good evaluation. But anyway, let's get into it. So at number 8, we have the AFC South. And this probably isn't a huge surprise to a lot of people. I will note, we'll take into account the fact that some teams are obviously expansion teams and haven't been in the league as long. So that, Houston Texans have only been in the league since 2002. So they've only really had a shot at about 20 Super Bowls in comparison to most teams have had a shot at 50 plus. But that being said, the Texans have not made a Super Bowl to this point. They're 0-0 to this point, as are the Jaguars, who were added in 1995, which Jaguars have 7 more years than the Texans in the league, but once again, still no Super Bowl appearances. Titans have made 1 Super Bowl. That was in the year 2000. Many people remember that game and their loss to the Rams in the last play of the game, 23-16 in Super Bowl 34. And then the Colts are 2-2, and this is counting their days when they were in Baltimore. So the AFC South pretty weak as of right now, as they are only 2-3 with just 5 appearances. Least amount of appearances out of any division in the NFL right now. And once again, that's just you can point a finger to the fact that the Jaguars and Texans have only been in the league since Super Bowl 30 for the Jaguars and Super Bowl 37 for the Texans. Titans are 0-1. This division is fairly new, but it really hasn't seen a whole lot of success. Next on up, we've got at number 7, we've got the NFC South. The Panthers at 0-2 in the Super Bowl. The Falcons 0-1. The Saints 1-0, and the Buccaneers at 2-0 with their championship last year. Obviously, Tom Brady getting the job done for the Buccaneers in that one. In total, NFC South at 3-4, 42.8% which that winning percentage ties our number 6 division, the AFC East. But because the AFC East has made it 14 more times to the Super Bowl, I gave the edge to the AFC East just because, once again, it takes a little bit more effort to make the Super Bowl. NFC South only 3-4, and that's really just because the Buccaneers made it last year. So both South divisions at 7 and 8, and once again, there weren't even South divisions until I think 1990s at some point. But once again, we're going based off these teams. The Buccaneers were just added in 1976 along with Seattle. So they missed out on 10 Super Bowls, as well as the Carolina Panthers came in with the Jaguars in 1995. So Carolina missed out on the first 30 Super Bowls. So that might have a little bit to do with the lack of Super Bowl appearances in both the NFC South and AFC South. But we could take a deeper dive into that another time just to see, how much those franchises are behind everyone else, just in terms of, success, playoff percentage, pretty much everything from top to bottom, just because they've had, considerably less time to make things happen. As I mentioned earlier, number 6, the AFC East. Obviously, we can't talk about this division without talking about the New England Patriots. Have made 11 Super Bowl appearances and have gone 6-5. That is second best or most appearances by 3. Next best is a tie between the Broncos, Cowboys, and Steelers. And the Patriots have obviously had the most success in recent years, with Tom Brady making 9 of those 11 appearances in the Patriots' history and winning all 6 of them. So that's just unbelievable when you think about it, that one man is responsible for all 6 Patriots franchise Super Bowl victories. And then obviously the Dolphins go 2-3. Dolphins' last appearance was in 1985 in Super Bowl 19 in their loss to the 49ers and Joe Montana. As I said before, the Jets 1-0 and the Bills, obviously with the 0-4 stretch, lost all 4 in a row. We'll have to see if the Bills can make another Super Bowl with Josh Allen at some point in the near future. But yes, the Bills are technically the best team that has never won a Super Bowl, just in terms of winning percentage and playoff percentage. At number 5, we have the AFC West, with the Denver Broncos winning 3 out of 8 Super Bowls that they have made, going back to Peyton Manning for Super Bowl 50 in their win over the Carolina Panthers. They've been struggling a little bit ever since, but definitely keeping the AFC West in that running. The Raiders 3-2 in the Super Bowl, Chiefs 2-2, and the Chargers at 0-1, one of those 12 teams that have still yet to win a Super Bowl. The AFC West is not necessarily a newer division, but they definitely have had their stretches of unsuccess, if you will. The Broncos, between John Elway and Peyton Manning, have made 7 of the 8 appearances. Craig Morton went 0-1 in his Super Bowl against the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl 12 in their loss 27-10. Moving on, we've got the NFC North at number 4. Obviously, many people know the Packers are one of the best franchises in NFL history, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier about, a team having success in the Super Bowl, but not necessarily making it that much. Once again, 4-1 is not a bad record, but if you've been watching the Packers at all in the last 20 years, you would know that it feels like they should have made the Super Bowl more than 5 times. I think they had a stretch of 8 playoff appearances in a row, and I think they had one off year, and now they're right back at it with another 2 or 3, maybe even 4-year stretch of making the playoffs. They are definitely a playoff team, just one of those staple playoff teams in the 21st century. And it's really surprising they've only made 5 Super Bowls, especially with the quarterbacks they've had in their history. 4-1 is only the 6th best Super Bowl winning percentage. That's based off of the number of wins, which is actually tied with the Giants for 5th with 4, and then winning percentage at .800, 4-1 in that category. The Bears are 1-1. They have been relatively great for how many Super Bowls they've made. Once again, their last appearance was in 2007 against the Colts when they lost to Peyton Manning 29-17 in Super Bowl 41. And then their first appearance was way back in 1986 against the New England Patriots. They won that one in somewhat of a blowout with Richard Dent being the MVP in that one. They have had some front office issues for quite some time, though, and it'll be a while before the Bears get back on track. The Vikings at 0-4, matching the Bills, possibly the worst. That's the thing about this, is it depends on how you look at it, right? 0-4 is not a good record, but if you consider that you've made 4 Super Bowls and you haven't won any of them, does that make you better than a team who hasn't made the Super Bowl? Does that make you better than a team who's made 1 Super Bowl and won that Super Bowl? Once again, I have 2 friends. One's a Jets fan and one's a Vikings fan. The Jets fan claims that the franchise is better than the Vikings franchise simply based off of a Super Bowl record of 1-0 versus 0-4 in the Minnesota Vikings. But you can't really make that claim, can you? I mean, let's be honest. Making a Super Bowl 4 times is a lot better achievement than making it once. There's a lot more that goes into it than just 1-0 in the Super Bowl. And obviously, in recent years, neither team has really had much to say. I know the Vikings have made the playoffs a few times, in the last decade or two, but haven't made the Super Bowl, I believe, since 1977. So when you haven't made the Super Bowl, in 30 plus years, it's almost like, well, where is your franchise at? But at the same time, if you're making the playoffs year in and year out, you can make a case that your franchise is somewhat relevant in the grand scheme of the NFL. Now, obviously, the goal of every franchise is to win the Super Bowl every year. Any team that's not thinking that is either tanking for a draft pick. At the end of the day, nobody wants to lose. You want to win Super Bowl rings. Let's continue here. I'm getting a little long-winded. To wrap up the NFC North, the Detroit Lions have not made a Super Bowl appearance in its franchise history. And we're not just talking about an expansion team here. This team has been here since the beginning, and they have struggled to do much in their few playoff appearances and 0 Super Bowl appearances for the Lions. We'll see if Dan Campbell can get that program started up for them. At number 3, we have the NFC West, and this was boosted by yesterday's win by the Los Angeles Rams. But obviously, when we talk NFC West, we got to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. And up until Super Bowl 47, they were probably the most dominant in terms of Super Bowl winning percentage at 5-0. They did lose to Joe Flacco and the Ravens in Super Bowl 47, and then lost to the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54 with Jimmy Garoppolo. But once again, this is not taking away from one of the best histories in the league. Obviously, Joe Montana, 4-0 in the Super Bowl, leading that 49ers program in the late 20th century to some really good seasons for the 49ers. They are listed at number 3 overall in terms of Super Bowl winning percentage at 5-2. Once again, almost made another one this year. They were just one dropped interception away from making it to the Super Bowl this year. And who knows, they could have made it 6-2 and tied the Steelers for that number 1 spot. But that being said, the Rams made it and boosted the NFC West's potential anyway. NFC West 8-8 overall. That's a 50% win rate. The Rams at 2-3. Seahawks at 1-2 with their 2 Super Bowl appearances in recent years. And the Cardinals at 0-1 in their 1 loss to the Steelers in Super Bowl 43. When we talk about the Super Bowl, a lot of people just kind of take it for granted. It is hard to get to the Super Bowl. And any team or any fan of a team that has made the Super Bowl, you know it didn't take one season. And maybe in the Bengals case it did this year. And that's an interesting topic I'd like to get into at some point. You know, how quickly you can turn a team around. But you know, a lot of these teams that make the Super Bowl, it is a long stretch of drafting well, trading for drafts well, getting the right coaches in place, getting the right pieces you want. And at the end of the day, you know, it's not something that just happens overnight. As a Chiefs fan, I can tell you, you know, the Chiefs were not that great when I started becoming a fan in 2008. And so the turnaround for them to get to the Super Bowl in the last couple of years, you know, it took about 6, 7, 8 years, right? They had to get Andy Reid. They had to get a better quarterback. And it took time to get all these offensive pieces. And so now that they have, you know, they're in a really good spot to stay at the top of the AFC and be that threat. I'm gonna move on because I don't want to, you know, talk too much about my team. I'm just saying it takes a little bit more effort than a lot of people think to make the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, there's only 2 teams that make it. And so, you know, just the fact that you're making an appearance, you know, that's something. That's worth something. As we head up to the AFC North, which before yesterday's game was at number 1 by percentage at 8-4 with a 2/3 percentage win rate in the Super Bowl. They have since dropped to 8-5 with the Bengals' loss last night, which drops them down to number 2 overall. As the Steelers, once again, probably the best franchise in terms of Super Bowl winning percentage at 6-2 overall. Ravens have made it twice and have won both of their games. And sadly enough, the 2 Ohio teams still struggling, but obviously a hell of a season for the Bengals this year. Once again, coming from a 4-12 campaign last year, you know, you really got to give it up for Zach Taylor and this coaching staff to really turn this program around. Joe Burrow, comeback player of the year. And this team is not going away for some time. You know, we're seeing a shift in the NFL to guys like Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. These guys are going to be the staple. These guys are going to be, you know, the next Brady and Manning. These guys are being the leaders of the AFC. And we're starting to see a shift in some of the dominant teams in the NFL. Browns have not made a Super Bowl appearance. Once again, the Browns have had an interesting history in the league. They weren't an expansion team per se, but they did take like a 3 or 4 season hiatus in the late 90s where they actually moved to Baltimore in 2002, or excuse me, in 1996. They moved to Baltimore and then were revived in 1999. So technically the Browns have been around, but they took a three-year break as the team moved to Baltimore and became the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens, with their win in 2001 and 2013, with their 2-0 record in the Super Bowl, Browns still trying to find their first one. That brings us to number one, the number one division in Super Bowl history in terms of winning percentage. And that's the NFC East, which once again at this point it seems a little bit surprising. I think this division is an interesting division. It might be the most balanced division out of the league. Some of the other divisions you can obviously tell, but usually there's a clear discrepancy. Take the NFC North, for example. Packers, I feel like, have always been that top tier team. Even in an off year, they're still the number 2 or 3 team. They're never really out of it. Versus the Lions, once again, they're going to have their years at some point, but they've never really been in it. The NFC East is more of a balanced division overall, but I'm pretty sure the division leader has each team has been the division leader like at least 2 or 3 times in the last 20 years or something. So when we're talking about balance, like there hasn't been repeat division leaders for like 20 years, I think. Giants, as I mentioned earlier, are 4-1, and the Giants have had kind of an interesting Super Bowl history, as once again they're obviously their 2 wins over the New England Patriots with Eli Manning, but then you have to go back to 2001. They kind of got blown out by the Ravens in Super Bowl 35, and then they won Super Bowl 25 over the Bills and Super Bowl 21 over the Broncos. So the Giants have had a very interesting Super Bowl history, as they really haven't had too much of a dynasty per se, but they have enough to be a respectable franchise. But at this point in time, you don't really see them turning the corner. And so, once again, when we're measuring a franchise's success rate, Super Bowl percentage really isn't that big of a deal. But it's just kind of interesting to look at some of these records in comparison to the teams where they are now. Washington at 3-2, and the Eagles just got out of that winless Super Bowl club with their win over the Patriots in 2018. Super Bowl 52 with Nick Foles. This was just kind of an experimental episode, so I apologize if it was a little rough to listen to. I do tend to go on a little bit of a tangent here and there, and I promise it will not be like this throughout the spring 2022 semester here. With that being said, I'm Paul Heires. This has been Just the Numbers. We will get into a lot more numbers in the coming weeks. This one was just a little bit more generalization of the Super Bowl history, every team's history in the Super Bowl, and just kind of a breakdown by division of the success rate of each division and the teams that are in those divisions. Once again, not necessarily the vibe that will be going into every week. I do want to get into a lot more analysis and discussion of the differences between college and professional, and also a lot more numbers. This is Just the Numbers. I'm Paul Heires, and we will see you next time.